Are these the first?
And he's a bitch.
He's a punk. He's a dog. He's a pig.
And he can suck my
He's a con, a bullshit artist, a mutt.
I'll meet him in a hotel room any other day of the week and give him a Louisville Slugger.
I'd like to punch him in the face.
Kiss my mother.
Which side of the aisle is really spewing hateful rhetoric?
Pointing what appears to be a water gun at the image of President Donald Trump projected on a whiteboard, our teacher Pale Modi has now been seen by countless viewers.
Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Weekdays from noon to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, The J.J. McCartney Show, exposing the truth, exposing the lies, exposing the deep state.
It's an actor dressed to look just like President Donald Trump as he's assassinated on stage.
How much longer can America survive this kind of hatred?
Video depicting comedian Kathy Griffin holding the bloody, decapitated head of President Trump are no joking matter for the Secret Service.
The rhetoric that has inspired the violence has come from the mainstream of the Democratic Party.
They're involved in the coup, an active attempt to start a bloody civil war.
I want people to imagine an FBI director that has the stones to investigate the deep state. Imagine a justice system that has the integrity to prosecute corrupt government officials. They have refused to apply the 14th Amendment and give conservatives equal protection under the law. What we've seen here has been the gradual takeover of the government by corporatism, by globalism. They have wrested control of our government away from the citizenry and put it in the hands of a few special interests. And these special interests are as evil as the day is long.
We finally do have a president who has the integrity to do this. We finally do have a DOJ who has the integrity to do this. We know that we have people around the president who not only have the integrity, but have the information and the contacts to get everything done you just said. And you say, well, why aren't they doing it? Everything you're seeing on the news, that's what it's about. That's what this investigation's about. That's what calls of impeachment are about. That's what the globalist attack against Trump is about. That's what the hearings are about. That's what the allegations of Russian spying are about. It's about keeping them off point, keeping them off the agenda, keeping them off task. A lot of what you're watching happening right now, and the misdirection and the complete trying to keep Trump off target goes to that birth certificate. The worst crime in American history was perpetrated against America under the regime of Barack Obama. The media is complicit. Congress is complicit. Federal law enforcement apparently has been complicit. We've got a CIA whistleblower, Dennis Montgomery, whose attorney, Larry Klayman, put it all over the internet the other day that he has said that all of this spying that's been going on American people, that it resulted in manipulation and collusion with judges, Supreme Court justices, congressmen, etc., that James Comey was involved in it, that he was at the top of it. All of this stuff you're seeing about Donald Trump's with the Russians, Donald Trump needs to be impeached, Donald Trump, this is a smokescreen to keep our eyes off of what really happened and what's really going on. And America had better wake up to this, JJ.
Your federal government, your federal law enforcement agencies, our federal intelligence agencies, your federal government in toto has been compromised. The fact that Donald Trump has arrived and said, I'm not going to go along with the status quo anymore, is the cause for alarm for these people on the left. And ultimately, Carl, is it possible that yesterday was simply the first shot fired in an impending civil war between two irreconcilable ideologies?
I don't want our children and grandchildren to see or to participate or to fall victim to such a thing. I don't want our nation to go through such a thing. I don't know that we could survive that. Like Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, when he said, now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any other nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. I mean, God's people, we need to pray. We need to not be afraid to speak truth.
Weekdays from noon to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, The J.J. McCartney Show, exposing the truth, exposing the lies, exposing the deep state.
Live from the Nightside Radio studios,
this is the J.J. McCartney Show.
Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Coming to you from Nebraska by way of Alaska. Here's J.J. McCartney.
Ah, yes, indeed. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. It's Friday, the 22nd day of December. And I am J.J. McCartney. Thank you for joining us today on the program. Yes, we'll talk about news. Certainly we will. But there's also an agenda that I am happy to tell you about. Ladies and gentlemen, join us today with the mysterious Colonel as we go in search of Santa Claus. All coming up right now on the J.J. McCartney Show. All right, welcome everybody. It's so good to have you with us today on this Friday, the 22nd day of December. Of course, Monday is Christmas Day, and we will be taking Monday off, as I hope all of you will be as well. And then Tuesday, we'll be back with more live shows. Yes, we will. But right now, let us say hello to our partner in crime, our good friend, the mysterious Colonel.
With the emphasis on the crime. Hello, JJ. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. I can't believe it's almost Christmas. Good Lord.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It absolutely
the year
is.
I mean, this past year, especially since the election of Donald Trump. I mean, this past year has just flown. And yet, Donald Trump has gotten so much accomplished. Have you noticed this? Donald Trump.
No, are you kidding me, JJ? We're all going to die.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
According to the libs, we're all going to die.
Yeah.
The world is going to come to an end. This is horrible.
As a matter of fact, according to the libs, the world. According to the libs, the world has already come to an end, and we're just too stupid to know it. According to the libs.
Exactly.
So,
Colonel, it is amazing.
Today we are live on the YouTube streaming video, and there is there's a mystery here today, and I wanted to mention this because we're going to spend a good portion of the program in search of this missing person. Okay? Now, don't panic, but rumor has it, vicious rumors, that Santa Claus has disappeared. Nowhere to be found. He's not at the mall. You will not find him at the mall. You will not find him at your local pump and pantry or whatever else they have out there.
Panera Bread. You won't find him at
exactly.
Panera Bread.
Then there's here in the area, and I'm sure you've seen these as well, gas station convenience stores called Come and Go. There's also Quick Stops, 7-Elevens. So far, nobody can find the real Santa Claus. And there's quite a bit of concern about this. Of course, there's been vicious rumors spread by hard-hearted people that say that Santa Claus is not real. Now, as a father, I have chosen to let my child come to her own conclusions about the question of Santa Claus. But I wanted to mention this because in today's world, Colonel, our children are not allowed to hold on to their innocence any longer. This is we talk about tragedies all the time, but this is really a tragedy. And the tragedy is that because of the evil that people have done, our children are no longer safe, and as a result, they're exposed at a much earlier age than they should be to a lot of the hard facts of life. And with Christmas just around the corner, I wanted us to talk about this because, doggone it, when I was a kid, my parents went all out to make sure that all of us kids, there are 4 of us, And we were poor, by the way. We didn't know we were poor, but we were. And yet, Christmas morning was always magical. Always. My dad
JJ, I got to...
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just said my dad always made sure stockings were stuffed and that there were always surprises awaiting us. Now, what were you going to say?
Yeah, no, I was going to say I grew up in probably the exact same circumstances, give or take. You were in Alaska. I wasn't quite there, upstate New York. But same thing. My family was poor. My father had a serious illness with multiple sclerosis when he was 18, and so many years he was out of work. But needless to say, as you said, the four of us, I had one sister and three brothers, and there's only two of us that remain. Thankfully, the mysterious Colonel is still kicking, although many people are trying to ensure that is not for much longer. But be that as it may, every Christmas it was a magical time. I don't know how my parents did it, but somehow we had the bestest, giftest, whatever. It was unbelievable. And as you said, as a child, you don't know how well or not so well your family financial situation is. You know, you just sometimes, back in those days, we compared ourselves to other kids, but we always had Christmases, and it was always something to look forward to, and it was always great stuff, man. And like you said, it was such a great innocence time when we were young kids, right. And you're right, kids don't have this anymore. And one thing I was going to say, what you said earlier, my kids, the reason they both, just my two daughters, the reason they believed in Santa Claus so long, and even now when they're in their 20s, I'm still hearing it. The reason they believed in Santa Claus is they looked at me, they said, wow, there's no way that you could afford all these gifts. Bum. So anyway, hey,
yeah, especially on a colonel's salary, yeah.
Exactly. Or the lack thereof. Good Lord. Anyway, but you're right.
So it was either that, or they consider the alternative being that, you're one of those people you hear about on the TV news, that puts on the mask.
Well, not only that, but
hits the liquor store.
Not only that. Well, not only that, yeah. But not only that, when I was off duty with the real Army, I substituted as a colonel for the Salvation Army.
Yeah.
A little levity on Friday.
No, I can honestly say I've never gone Christmas shopping at the liquor store, but the truck stop, that's a whole different ball of wax. It really is.
Oh,
but when it comes to the how children see the world. And, this is what I wanted to kind of focus on with our conversation today. When it comes to how kids see the world, I'm really sad for our kids today because they've been forced to grow up in the age of 9/11, forced to grow up with the idea that, you have to have metal detectors at their schools, and just the idea that, we're not nearly as far removed from evil in this world as we were when you and I were growing up. And that's sad. It really is. Now, I wanted to mention in the news, we do have a news story that is no way related to any of this. And that is that the UN Security Council has chosen to tighten economic vice on North Korea.
North Korea.
Yeah. They're blocking fuel, ships, and workers.
Yep.
So that's a good thing, and that's a victory for Donald Trump. But again, you won't hear that in the mainstream media, with the exception.
No, of course not.
But this headline from the New York Times says Security Council tightens economic vice on North Korea. But what they didn't say was that this was a big victory for President Trump. As a matter of fact, I'm looking and I'm not seeing the president's name anywhere in
you won't see that
story from the New York Times until you get below the fold and you get down to a part where it says President Trump has used just about every lever you can use, short of starving the people of North Korea to death, to change their behavior. That, according to Mr. Bossert, who is he is with I'm looking here trying to find out just who the hell he is. But it took them that long to, invoke the name of Donald Trump. But significantly, the president has done everything right in regards to North Korea. There is a solution here, and the solution is the same thing that Ronald Reagan did with Afghanistan and Russia: quiet engagement. And that, I feel, is what worked. Yeah. That's what won the Cold War, was quiet engagement. And, you know, the headline on Drudge reads, "Victory for USA at UN." But the surprising part of this story is that China and Russia joined in the tough new sanction.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, it. You know, as long as Christmas is around the corner, you know, I think that this is probably some of the best news we've seen in a while. Also breaking news, speaking of lost innocence, James Rosen, stalwart of Fox News Channel's Washington, D.C. bureau, is leaving the network. Rosen is exiting the company at the end of the year, according to Fox News. Rosen, 49 years old, been with Fox News since 1999. As the network's chief Washington correspondent, he often reported on Special Report, but was seen throughout Fox News Channel's programming day, most recently just yesterday. In 2013, it was revealed the Obama Justice Department had been investigating Rosen in a leak probe. Now, James Rosen...
Wiretapping.
Yeah, James Rosen, one of the... he was one of the good reporters there at Fox.
Yeah.
And,
Agreed.
You know, as to why, there's no mention of why he's leaving. But
yeah, that's concerning.
I do, you know, I remember him covering the campaign, the presidential campaigns, opposite of what's his name? Carl Cameron. Carl Cameron.
Oh, right. Carl Cameron.
As a matter of fact, Carl Cameron, I think, covered the Gore campaign. Rosen covered the Bush campaign in 2000. You know, and while you can't credit Rosen with tipping the election in Bush's favor, I think that, you know, he was at least truthful and was always there defending the truth when the mainstream media was bashing even George W. Bush. Now, you know, George W. Bush is not the quintessential conservative Republican, but when you compare him to Al Gore, he was the only choice that you had on that ticket. And but this is the sad part. This really is the sad part. Every time we get to a general election for president, I find myself asking the same question a lot of other people do. And it's simply this: you're telling me these are the two best people that you can come up with to run the government?
Yeah,
and it's like, you know, you can look high and low. You can look for Santa Claus and find him a lot sooner than you can find the ideal candidate for president in this day and time.
Yeah, no, I've said that many elections ago. Yeah, this is the best this country could do.
Yeah.
You know? Wow. Yeah.
Do you remember the old song? It was a long time ago. You know, classic. You know, like back in the days of Sinatra. It was called "So This Is Love." You remember that?
Yeah.
Vaguely.
Yep.
I always pictured in my mind when I look at the presidential choices that we were given, especially in the primaries, I say, "This is it. So this is it."
Right.
Because honestly, you know, if you look at it like a sane, rational person, then you'd have to say that, you know, since Ronald Reagan, the political parties have done a terrible job of giving the American people what they deserve in leadership. And or maybe they've done a good job. I don't know. Maybe the American people are the ones.
I was just going to say, it depends. It depends on how you say that. You know. Yeah, they're giving America exactly what they wanted. If you get my drift. Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Well, the thing is, you know, where did this really start? I want to say that this started in the early 20th century, more than 100 years ago, when Woodrow Wilson was president, and he was a huge progressivist, and he saw, you know, and this is how they all look at the world now, is that any money that you earn as a worker is somehow ill-gotten gain.
Right.
And that if you are successful at what you do, then you did that on the backs of former slaves, or I'm sorry, the descendants of slaves, or that you did it by cheating somebody else out of their heritage or whatever you want to call it.
You didn't build that.
Exactly.
You didn't build that. Yeah, exactly.
It's really pathetic.
Yeah.
But here's the good thing. Here's the good thing. People don't understand. You know, the tax cut that passed this week that President Trump is signing into law, I believe, today.
Oh, no, he signed it already.
Oh, did he? Okay.
He signed it already.
All right.
Oh, yep.
I slept through that. So
That's okay. And the caveat, you're really quick, when he landed, I've never seen it. Well, maybe I have seen it, but when he landed in, I think, Palm Beach or West Palm Beach or wherever he landed in Florida, what a reception he got. And I don't know if the other channels covered it. They probably didn't. But you heard, the one thing I heard was somebody yelled out, "Best president ever." And that's all I'll say. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I had to say that. What a reception he got. Anyway, go ahead, JJ.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. You know, I had somebody that tried to contend the other day that you know, this tax cut is just a payoff to the rich people that donated to Trump's campaign. And I'm like, first of all, I'm thinking, how many famous rich people donated to Trump's campaign? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah.
But secondly,
exactly.
You know, this idea that, and they said, how can somebody that makes $500,000 a year and owns only one home be considered part of the middle class? And I had to chuckle because I'm thinking, you know, especially those people that live on Manhattan or in and around New York. I mean, come on. $500,000, you calculate this, and I did this the other day. I calculated this, Colonel, and here's what I came up with. Federal tax rate, 39.6% for the highest earners. 39.6, that's federal. Then in the state of New York, what is your income tax in New York? I'm thinking for those people, I'm guessing it's about 25% for the highest earners.
Honestly, I should know that. Yeah, it could be. I should know that. I don't, honestly.
And then
I should know that.
If they own a home, assuming that home is probably worth $750,000.
Oh yeah, sure. State and local taxes too.
You've got your property taxes. You've got your luxury taxes. And and if you add all those taxes up, and then there's sales tax as well, then that $500,000 gets gobbled up very quickly. 39% of 500,000. That takes a big bite. I mean, you're talking. Let's round it up to 40%. 40% of 500,000 is how much? 200,000. All right. Now that's just right off the top. Then you've got another 25% from the state. 25%, that's 125,000. So now suddenly, $325,000 later, you're clearing $175,000 a year, and you still have your house payment to make. Now, assuming if you've got a sizable mortgage on your home, your mortgage payments are probably going to be somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000 a month. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's $60,000. What does that leave you with? That leaves you with $15,000. Now, I'm sorry, $115,000. But then you got utilities, living expenses.
Exactly.
You've got college tuitions to think about, and then you start from the sound of it. If you make $500,000 a year, you're supposedly doing quite well. But suddenly, what you find is, at the end of the day, you don't even have $100,000 that's actually getting deposited in your account by the time you get all these other people's hands out of your pockets. And so the person that earns $500,000 a year on paper is actually very clearly not rich in places like New York or San Francisco or metropolitan Boston. I'm sure it's the same way there. And so what you're left with is the inescapable conclusion that the progressives in America have done such a successful job of demonizing successful people that that is their that is the one thing they go back to every time: hating the rich, promoting class envy, and making it sound as though $500,000 a year puts you up with the fat cats, when in fact what it does is, it probably sends some people to the soup kitchen.
Oh my God! Fire alarm causes a big evacuation at Dallas Airport. But to go back to what you said, are any of these politicians poor people? They're not from the middle class. They're all rich themselves. So, otherwise, I don't know how they stay in office, and then they make all these millions and millions of dollars when they leave. So they're in effect basically, calling themselves out. And I'm so sick and tired of that. I got to tell you, JJ, I'm not among the rich, but I got to tell you, I don't begrudge anybody unless you hoodwinked me and cheated me out of my money like Bernie Madoff. Then that's a different story. But if you earned it because you went into a business where you could, how am I supposed to begrudge you? You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I can't stand that when those libs and Democrats use that as their talking point all the time. The rich, the rich. Yeah. And you know what? Why don't the rich people, or those who consider themselves rich, fight back with them and tell them, stop using us as your sounding board? I don't know. You know what I mean? I'd be
what I don't understand is why somebody hasn't bought a couple hours of primetime TV airtime and gone and shown the numbers that I just gave you. I really don't understand, why is it that we cannot get the message out to the American people to let them know how they're being bilked by the politicians, and specifically what they're doing. And when they demonize somebody that makes $500,000 a year, when I was young, it was my intention to be successful in business. And to me, every working American aspires to get to that level,
Of course.
And when you do, do you want to find that, hey, you work hard, you're successful, and finally you reap a reward for it? Instead, you find that, no, you get punished for it. And this is a message that has been reinforced in our schools through this ridiculous idea that, you have to grade on a curve and you don't ever flunk anybody. So what is the incentive for people to excel? And this is exactly how countries implode when they are run by people on the left.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And, it's the simplest analogy. I don't know why a lot of people don't get it. If one student doesn't come to class, doesn't work, and then everybody else does, works hard, gets an A, is it fair that the other student gets an A? I just don't think they really get that concept, but it's a very simple analogy. And it's true, But we're living in a world, though, and unfortunately, there's, it's funny because the libs, the Dems, claim that it's the Republicans that fearmonger. But I got to tell you, I see it just the opposite. It's the Nancy Pelosi's, the upchuck Schumers that come out there all the time and basically fearmonger. We're all going to die because of this. This is the worst thing that ever happened. That little witch Nancy Pelosi, the wicked witch of the West. We're all going to die because nobody's going to have health care because of these tax cuts. This is the worst thing that ever happened. OMG. It's disgusting. But you know what, JJ? The problem is the media. That's what's filling these Americans that believe that the MSNBCs, the CNNs, that they're telling you the truth, and they're taught to hate Fox. Why? Because the big Barack Hussein Obama, every chance he gets, talks about Fox News, and it's all Fox News' fault, and it's all Sean Hannity's fault.
Yeah.
And people are not smart enough to realize otherwise.
I got to tell you, by the way, breaking news, by the way, excuse me. Officials have stopped a man who reportedly stated that Christmas was the perfect day for a terror attack on San Francisco's Pier 39. Have you ever been to San Francisco?
I have. Many years ago when it was actually still a great place. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
The
back in
Fisherman's Wharf area.
Yeah. Well,
here's
I was gonna mention real quick before you, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but the other thing you were talking about, children's innocence. I saw a report on the news this morning where they had to blacken it out because it showed another ISIS posting, and it was really it was a Santa Claus without a part of his body, and that's as far as I'll go. But they refused to show it, so if any kids were watching. Yeah, and this is just like what you talked about. Can you imagine how traumatic that would be for a child that just happened to see that accident?
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean
As a matter of fact, I have a story to tell you about innocent children. And this one is amusing, but I need to take a quick break here in just a minute. We'll be back with more with the mysterious Colonel in search of Santa Claus today. But again, we'll have details about the attempt at an attack in San Francisco. And also, as the Colonel mentioned, fire alarms at the Dallas airport. We'll try and find more information on that as the show wears on as well. And plus, phone lines are open at 855-853-5227. That's our toll-free number here at the J.J. McCartney Show. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back with more on the Friday, December 22nd edition of the J.J. McCartney Show. More to come in just a minute. Stay with us.
The J.J. McCartney Show.
Hey, everybody. J.J. McCartney here. You know, it's not very often that I get excited about a product, but I am sure excited about this one. I'm talking, of course, about MyPillow.com. These pillows are made in the USA. They come with a 60-day comfort guarantee and a 10-year warranty. They are machine washable and dryable. They come with a patented interlocking fill. It keeps you cool at night, and it will not go flat. Go to MyPillow.com. Click the Radio Listeners Special tab and use promo code JJMC to get 2 premium king or queen size pillows and 2 additional go anywhere travel pillows for one special price and free shipping. That's mypillow.com, promo code JJMC, or call 800-953-6613. That's 800-953-6613. mypillow.com, promo code JJMC.
The fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Is this vast right-wing conspiracy that has been conspiring against my husband since the day he announced for president.
I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
This vast right-wing conspiracy.
I never told anybody to lie.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate.
Not a single time. Never. These allegations are false.
This vast right-wing conspiracy.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate.
The Clintons took $2 million from me and hid it.
Now, what we're looking at here is the largest election law fraud in the history of the United States.
Allegations of lying about the cost of a fundraiser put together on her behalf.
This vast right-wing conspiracy.
Whatever it is you're doing, is it okay that I thank you?
You know what? We're having a good time trying to help out.
This sounds like it's going to be a great event. I'm glad you were all together so that I could tell you how much this means to me.
This vast right-wing conspiracy.
Someday there'll be a cure. Someday we won't lose the people we love. But when is someday? Someday is today. Thanks to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, hundreds of thousands diagnosed with blood cancer are today living a normal life. We're making cures happen. Join us. Call 888-HELP-LLS or go to LLS.org. Help us reach today sooner.
The J.J. McCartney Show.
There's a nasty little criminal on the loose.
It could be in your area. In fact, it could be in your backyard.
It's the Asian longhorn beetle.
Yeah, that's right. A beetle, the insect kind.
Black and white, long striped antenna. It's a tree killer.
This is one bad beetle. It's caused the destruction of thousands of trees already.
Thing is, we can't spot it now. It's gone undercover, inside the trees.
Cold weather drives it into hiding.
So now, it's a game of waiting it out.
What can you do to help?
You can be a beetle buster and protect the trees.
Don't move firewood, because the beetle, its larvae, its eggs, they could be in the wood.
If you move firewood, you could spread the beetle.
So buy it locally, burn it locally. Got it?
It's as simple as black and white. Don't move firewood.
Be a beetle buster. Learn more at beetlebusters.info.
That's beetlebusters.info. A message from the USDA.
Okay, we are back on the J.J. McCartney Show. And again, FBI saying a man planned a Christmas terror attack for San Francisco's Pier 39. Officials have stopped the man. And here's what we know. FBI has arrested a man by the name of Everett Aaron Jameson from Modesto, California. They said he wanted to target Pier 39 in San Francisco. According to FBI documents, Jameson picked out that location because he had been there before and knew it was a heavily crowded area. He added that it would be easy to funnel people into an area where he could inflict casualties. Jameson reportedly said he was inspired by the New York terror attack on October 31, when a man drove into a crowd and killed 8 people in the deadly 2015 shooting in San Bernardino. Hard to believe that's been 2 years ago, Colonel.
Wow.
It just amazing how fast it's gone by. According to documents, the suspect was discharged from the Marine Corps. He had prior military experience with a sharpshooter rifle qualification and expertise with rifle marksmanship. So kudos to the FBI for catching this guy on social media before he had a chance to actually go and do any harm. Very, very thankful that our FBI was able to avert this attack. And, it shows that not everybody at the FBI has their head up their butt targeting President Trump for ridiculous, made-up, pardon the pun, trumped-up charges. So there's that. Now, the situation in Dallas, I haven't seen anything come across yet. Where did you see the headline?
Saw that on one of the chyons on one of the news channels. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll wait for more details to come regarding that. Now, we're talking about kids and their innocence and Santa Claus and Christmas because it just seems as though so many people have abandoned the thought that our children have the right to grow up with some innocence, not having to deal with all of the harsh realities of this world that we live in. And I think that if you look at it today, children as young as 5 and 6 years old have become jaded at that age because of the things they see and hear. And when you're cynical at the age of 5, what kind of hope do you have for tomorrow?
Right.
It's really sad. But I want to tell you a story. True story. It happened when my nephew was 4 years old. My nephew, by the way, I haven't seen him in several years, and I sure hope I get to soon. But his name is Colin. And we were watching a movie. My brother and his wife had come over to the house with their kids, and we were sitting down to watch a silly movie starring Weird Al Yankovic. Okay?
Oh.
I think most people have probably seen the movie. I think it's called VHF. Okay? Well, very early in the movie, you have Weird Al Yankovic dressed up to look like Rambo, and all these different things going on. And at the very end of that opening scene of the movie, it focuses in on his face, and then the screen dissolves into a hamburger patty being fried on a restaurant grill. Okay? My 4-year-old freaked out. My 4-year-old nephew, Colin, freaked out, runs to his dad crying and says, "Dad, Weird Al turned into a hamburger." And he was crying uncontrollably, inconsolable at the age of 4 years old because he saw it on television and he believed it. innocence, that kind of that pure innocence of a youngster that just, why would anybody ever turn Weird Al into a hamburger? You know,
right? Yeah,
and yet
you're right.
You know, today we look at this world and you know, the concept of Santa Claus, and you know, those of us that are in the room that are grown-ups, we understand that, you know, there's some embellishing going on, and there always has been. But the idea was, how can we preserve our young children's innocence and give them this very, you know, it's an amazing message that you can send to your kids when they tumble down the stairs at 6 o'clock in the morning to find stockings stuffed with all kinds of fun things. Things that on any other day of the year your mother wouldn't let you have. You know, candy, you know, all kinds of, you know, just the idea is what you're telling your kids is not only are you loved, but you are loved with abundance. And that is the message that
I mean,
no matter what else is going wrong in the world, your parents make sure that all is well in your world when you're that young.
You know, and you bring up a good point. There'll be time enough when they go beyond the teenage, graduate from high school, maybe go on to college, enter the real world of stress and, you know, whatever. So to enjoy your childhood. And I remember, wouldn't even know what words to use, JJ, to describe that feeling when you believe that there is somebody named Santa Claus that drops all these gifts, and they're the bestest gifts ever, every Christmas, that just give you such an unbelievable feeling. I don't even know how to describe that, and you're absolutely right. Could you imagine kids not having that feeling at such a young age? I mean, what else is there? You know what I mean?
And then not only that, but I mean you know, the other thing is that there are a lot of kids out there that, you know, their families are dealing with hunger. And that's, you know, many of them are dealing with disease. Yeah. Many of them are dealing with mental health issues as well. Yeah. And right. You know, and you know, specifically, I guess we have to talk about the you know, single parent households where, you know, one or more of their parents have substance abuse issues or things like that going on. Yeah, and you know, undiagnosed mental health problems in terms of their parents. And you know, the thing that really breaks my heart is these youngsters that have been violated by the adults that they were supposed to be able to trust in their life. Yeah, and the damage done by generations of this going on. You know, these generational curses, and you know, one of them is, you know, I mean, when you have a grandparent or an uncle or somebody like that that at a very young age abuses you, it stays with you for the rest of your life. And you know, that's the cynicism that we see in so many youngsters today. When they grow to be adults, they don't have any reverence for their parents or for their other relatives, and in many cases they you know, they cast that judgment on all of humanity because it's all they've ever known. And you know, I'm not trying to bring people down, but please understand that, you know, the concept of Santa Claus, it's not all bad. It's not, you're not teaching your children to be deluded for the rest of their lives. But what you're trying to do is give them something to hang on to when the world is bombarding them with negatives and with everything that's horrific in the world. And, you know, ever since 9/11, and when 9/11 happened, one of the first thoughts I had was to imagine the children that lost their parents that day and how they would never, ever be the same. And that children in America that watched it all unfold on TV live, they're never going to be the same. And this is why I think that this was such an evil, terrible thing that happened on 9/11. It wasn't just the fact that 3,000 people died, that, landmarks were wiped off the map. It wasn't that. It was the psychological impact of that on the psyche of the country. And suddenly you have people questioning, well, is America as strong and blessed as it was before? Or have we rounded a corner now to where America is just another place on the map that has been visited by this hatred and terrorism? And, when you're dealing with young children, it's okay. And I think that, one of the messages that I think Santa Claus would endorse wholly is that Christmas centers around Christ, and that that's the message that to me it all worked when I was young. The story of the birth of Christ, the greatest sacrifice and the greatest gift ever given to mankind. And then people say, well, Christmas was based on the pagan tradition of the Christmas tree and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, now, come on. You're not telling me that with all the emphasis that we put on, especially in our Christmas carols, centering around the birth of the Messiah, you're not going to tell me that this is the continuation of a pagan ritual, not for people that believe in Christ. Right. And it used to be socially acceptable in America to say Merry Christmas. You look at where the progressives have taken the narrative in this country.
Oh, yeah.
And, honestly, this is why Donald Trump was elected. It's because people want to preserve what America is when America is at its best. And those on the left have no desire whatsoever to cling to the moral traditions of America as it was founded. And, those are the ones, those are the bah humbuggers in the world. Those are the Scrooges in the world. And what it really comes down to is they don't want anybody to have any fun this time of year.
Right. Exactly.
They want to pee on the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. They want to sully all of our tradition, while at the same time importing unvetted terrorist Muslims into the country.
Yeah.
So you tell me
what's people of the world.
What's wrong with their paradigm, Colonel?
Yeah, it's a great paradigm. They're peace-loving people of the world. So yeah, exactly. Yep. Well, they're people that aren't happy with themselves, and that's why they don't want anybody else to be happy, and they don't believe, and they don't like it. They're all resentful. They're hateful. They're hateful people. That's all I can say. They're hateful people.
Yeah.
Absolutely hateful.
So in the midst of all this, I was going through Walmart yesterday doing some grocery shopping. I always try to do that before the holiday, just to make sure that there's not as much stress on the wife and the daughter when it comes to making sure we have good food to eat in the house. And I like the festive idea of the house always smelling like something is baking fresh. And it's a wonderful, wonderful atmosphere that we create during the holidays. And, the displays at Walmart, I can say this because, if they sued me, they wouldn't get much. But the displays that I see at Walmart, so many things placed right there around the registers and, where high traffic areas where they know you're going to be passing by, and they put all the good stuff right there so that you get sucked into throwing a whole bunch of stuff in your cart at the last second, But there are foods that are available only this time of year. There's some of the cookies and some of the other things that they just simply can't sell any other time, but around Christmas.
Hickory Farms.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. And so I'm looking at this thing, and I go by, and here is a little box of white chocolate-dipped Oreos. Okay.
Oh wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, I know. You know, there's some part of me knows I shouldn't do this. You know, but it's like when you see stuff like that, it's like some primary switch gets flipped in your brain, and you become Homer Simpson.
Wow.
You know, you become Homer. Oreos.
Pier. Oreo cookies. Ooh.
Yeah.
That's
but
funny.
But you know, no other time of year will you find these things. But it's like, you know, and for me, I have to really watch what I do this time of year because, you know, I'm diabetic, among other things.
Oh, right.
And so I have to be really careful and be selective in how I destroy my body. And but you know, I think back to when I was young, and I mean, there was always fudge. You know, all kinds of fudge with walnuts in it and all the other, you know, the goodies. And you never got your hand slapped when you reached for a piece of fudge, you know.
That's right.
And yet, you know, I look today, and by the way, are you eating popcorn?
No, I'm not. I'm not,
good,
JJ. I'm just moving ice. That's okay. Sorry.
No, you got me thinking about food. And
I'm just moving some ice so I can get another beer. That's all. Sorry, JJ. You were talking about all that good food for Christmas. Yeah. So I just figured I'd get another beer.
I forgot. You know? I forgot the early start on Friday. Yeah. And let's talk about libations too, because I mean, let's face it. There's a lot of holiday parties going on these days. And last week, my wife, we attended her employer's holiday party, and everybody else is drinking hard liquor and doing whatever, you know. I just asked the waitress, can I have a cup of coffee with some Kahlua in it? And so she, if you've ever seen How I Met Your Mother, there was the scene where Lily is at the place where they're getting married, and she goes to the bartender and says, I want you to constantly keep my drink, a full drink in my hand at all times. I think she waved a $100 bill at him and said, make sure that happens. And so every time that she'd finish a drink, boom, there's another one. Yeah. And it was like that with my coffee with Kahlua in it at the Christmas party. And so, you know, after a while, I'm feeling pretty good, you know, because Kahlua is good stuff. It really is.
Indeed.
And
indeed it is.
And that reminded me of my time in Alaska. I was at a party that was also being attended by the governor, who lives in Juneau, you know, and I'm in Anchorage, and I'm doing afternoons on a AM radio station in Anchorage, and I'm at this party, and there's the governor, and they were serving what's called polar bears at this party. Polar bears are simply a coffee cup filled 3/4 of the way with hot coffee, and then you add a scoop of vanilla ice cream and a generous portion of Kahlua. Okay? These things go down smoother than anything known to man, and they just kept them coming the whole day, you know. And so I'm sitting there, and I bump into the governor. I say, hey, Governor, good to meet you, J.J. McCartney.
Hey, Governor.
And he looks at me. I said, J.J. McCartney, and he goes, oh, yeah, I listened to you. And it's like my whole world just turned upside down. It's like, you listened to me? That? And you know, he was a liberal Democrat governor, and he listens to me.
Oh, wow!
And I thought to myself, how much politics has changed since then, where a liberal governor is listening to me on the radio every day, and then a few years go by, and all of a sudden, there's not one liberal politician that would ever even dream of listening to this show. Because I mean this is what's wrong with these people, is that they've closed their minds so thoroughly to the idea of, you know, actually giving and taking when you have a conversation. Yeah. And instead, what they want is they're on a seek and destroy mission. Certainly, it's been that way with Donald Trump. You know, they don't want to get along. They want to kill him.
Oh, that's exactly.
You know?
I've never seen anything like it.
How do you like my dog sled team in the background?
Yeah, I know. I've been hearing them the whole time. It's great. It's great.
I said it was casual Friday. No, I said it was casual Friday. No, what happens is, I mean, the girls, they were out doing some last-minute shopping today, and it turned out that on the main car that they drive, the left rear tire, I guess, is really low on air. And so they came home, and then they jumped into my truck and left with that. Well, that drove the dogs crazy because they were expecting, oh, they're home now. And then all of a sudden, hey, what the heck?
Wow.
You know, so now the girls are coming home again. And you can hear it's like the dog sled teams in Alaska when we'd have a race there. You would not believe how crazy these dogs get before they go on the race. I mean, they are so stoked to start. And when you hear, I mean, we're talking dozens of dog sled teams, all of them at full throat. And there's no other sound like it in the world. And these dogs were born to do what they do. Well, yesterday we got some snow in the backyard, dusting of snow. And our biggest dog, his name is George Lucas. And he's not named after the producer, by the way. It just turned out that, that was how things worked out. But George Lucas is such a, he was born to be a sled dog. He really was. He's so fast on his feet. When he decides to run around in the backyard, dogs sometimes just take off running around and around and around to run off their energy.
Oh, yeah.
My goodness, you watch him go, and it's just amazing. He's like a gazelle in the backyard, And then there's Jared, and Jared is more like the Homer Simpson of dogs, okay? The only time he's going to exercise is when it leads him to his food dish.
Ah, indeed.
and then there's the little yipster that is Katie. She is the yipster in the house. She's about a 20-pound dog that thinks she's a 50-pound dog. And so yeah, she does the. I mean, if you've ever seen the Warner Brothers cartoons of Spike, the big dog, and then the little yippy dog that follows him around and says, "Come on, Spike! Come on, Spike!" Yeah. That's kind of what it's like. It's fun to watch. But when there's snow on the ground, the dogs they love it. They absolutely love it.
They love it.
Yeah.
How about that?
But it's. I mean, to me, and this is another thing that, I hope that parents out there, if you have a chance to let your kids experience the joy of pet ownership, it teaches them lessons they'll never learn anywhere else.
Yep.
I mean, it really does, and people wonder why it's necessary. It's like, well, first of all, what you get from owning a dog is so much more than just having to take them out and feed them and do all this and that. I mean, the companionship that you get from a dog, 100% loyalty. There's zero politics involved. I mean, all they care about is you. When you walk in at the end of the day, no matter what kind of day you've had, to get that unconditional love from your pets, there's a much better chance of you getting that, especially you, than you walk through the door at the end of the day and everybody meets you to give you that unconditional approval that you want so much. The dogs do a much better job of that than the humans.
True. That's true. You're right about that.
I kid you not. But
that's true.
It's amazing.
True.
Well, Christmas time. I mean, we talk about it, and when we talk about the search for Santa, we're going somewhere with this. And next hour we'll talk more about it because, to me, the search for Santa leads to a very good place, and we'll talk about that much more with the mysterious Colonel. What is it that makes you mysterious?
Everything. Everything about.
Yeah, I just lost you, Colonel. I'm sure he'll call back. Although I think well, you know what? It's top of the hour. We'll take a break. We'll come back with the mysterious Colonel and so much more on this 22nd day of December, the J.J. McCartney Show. We'll come back with more, I promise you, And for those of you watching on YouTube, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're going somewhere with this. Stick around. Hour number 2 of the J.J. McCartney Show on this Friday. Coming up.
California, at least 13 people were arrested as hundreds blocked traffic on 2 major highways, waving Mexican flags and burning a giant effigy of Donald Trump. Police fired rubber bullets, and pepper spray at hundreds of protesters after the crowds took over major intersections.
Load up, load up, load up, we rubber bullets.
Homophobia, sexual assault, white supremacy.
In terms of reaching out and being inclusive, he's done that too. And a will to risk to make things better and opportunities to embrace the underserved communities.
White privilege!
Load up, we rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, Lilo, snowflake.
Here in New York, as many as 10,000 people surged through the streets and surrounded the barricaded-off Trump Tower where Donald Trump lives.
Snowflake, snowflake, Lilo, snowflake.
We reject the president-elect! Load up, load up, load up, we rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, Lilo, snowflake.
I think it speaks to the disenfranchisement of the people that someone like him could be seen as offering anything to the masses.
Load up, load up, load up, we rubber bullets.
Lilo, snowflake, falling from the sky.
What about gay people? Trump has vowed to protect the LGBT community from a fanatical ideology that represents its biggest threat. Radical Islam.
As your president, I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology.
Load up, load up, load up, we rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, Lilo, snowflake, falling, 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 falling.
He is a racist.
Under Obama, more black people are living below the poverty line. The number of African Americans on food stamps has increased 58% under Obama.
On every leading economic issue, on the major economic issues, black Americans have lost ground in every one of those leading categories. So for the last 10 years, it's not been good for black folks.
Is this how the left helps black communities? By making them poorer and more dependent on government. Race relations are at their worst in decades. 8 years of Obama has been devastating for the black community.
He is a sexist. He is a neo-Nazi.
Well, we don't understand why you called in the National Guard.
Falling on my nose.
Not my president. He is a lying ass.
Snowflake, snowflake, Lilo, snowflake.
Fake ass.
Lilo, snowflake, falling from the sky.
Dumb ass son of a bitch.
Load up, load up, load up, we rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, Lilo, snowflake, falling, 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 falling.
That's not my president! That's not my president! Load up, load up, load up, we rubber bullets.
Falling in my hand.
Thank you for taking America back 60 years of progress.
Falling on my head.
You just voted in a Nazi fascist.
Falling on my nose. Falling in my hand.
What you gonna do about it? What you gonna do?
Live from the Nightside Radio Studios,
This is the J.J. McCartney Show.
Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
coming to you from Nebraska by way of Alaska. Here's J.J. McCartney.
All right, we are back, and thank you very much for sticking around, ladies and gentlemen. It's very good to have you with us. Merry Christmas, everybody. I've been derelict. I haven't been saying that much. And, the honest truth is that, this casual Friday, my daughter says to me, "You're wearing gray, Dad. You're wearing gray. There's no color there, Dad. What?" And I said, "Well, what do you want me to do? Wear a sweater that's got, reindeer on it or something?" And I was like, "Unfortunately, I don't have that. But what I do have, ladies and gentlemen, is I have the warmest holiday greetings in my heart for a Merry Christmas to one and all." The mysterious Colonel is back with us. Thank you, Colonel. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Merry Christmas to you, too.
I've learned
it's nice to be able to say it again.
Absolutely.
Good Lord.
I've learned one lesson today. I was testing the limits of my long-distance carrier for the show. And what happened, we lost the Colonel there at the very last part of the first hour. And it turned out that my balance on my account with my long-distance company was down to 1 penny. And so I jumped on and replenished my account during the break. And lo and behold, here we are once again. Very, very good to have you with us,
I thought it
Colonel.
was net neutrality that got to me. That's what I was worried about because,
it had me wondering, I'll tell you that. It really did. This idea of net neutrality is such a ridiculous... there's a certain amount of sniveling by the left when it comes to the idea that people that pay more for something have a right to expect more than people that don't. They want everybody to have this level playing field. Well, the bottom line is, if you're not paying for that level playing field, you shouldn't get it.
Exactly. Sorry about that, folks. That's the way it works. Sorry.
Yeah. I was like, it's like, are you willing to? That's no fair. I'm paying for a Subaru, but he's driving a Cadillac.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But here's an even better one that people are not outraged about. And I guess the latest and greatest is they're saying that when Apple put out a new version of an iPhone, they purposely slowed down the old phone to now I don't know if they can prove this or not, but they said they purposely slowed down the old phone to sort of create an incentive for you to buy the new phone. Where's the outrage about that? You know what I mean? I mean, that to me
what that's
is
called
chicanery and skullduggery.
It's called an Easter egg. It really is.
Yeah.
It's not just about the phone, the hardware. It's also about the software. There's certain types of software that they build these Easter eggs into that will compel the users to update. Okay? And if you don't update the software, then it becomes less and less functional. Okay? So that's their incentive to keep people signed up for their yearly whatever it is. I know this because I worked in an industry where we... it was a software-based system that was sold and marketed. And when certain dates on a calendar arrived, all of a sudden, certain functionality just froze up. And if you were not paying a monthly support fee, then when you hit those Easter eggs, boom, that's it. And
how about that?
And that takes me back to the non-event of the Y2K thing.
Yeah, right. Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
2000. Yep.
I was sitting in the support center on January 31st, 1999, with everybody else around me in the support center. We're sitting there with quiet phones. The phones are not ringing at all, and yet we were fully staffed waiting for that flood of phone calls. And the whole day, I think there was only one real call that came in. I was the one that got to take it. And, I'm sitting there with everybody over my shoulders, CEOs and CFOs and everybody else just, watching every keystroke, And I'm thinking to myself, for all of the hoopla, I'm convinced it was all a marketing ploy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. I totally agree. Look at how many things were sold. I think wasn't duct tape the biggest seller and all kinds of nonsense.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it was a big marketing ploy. What a better way to exploit consumers? I totally agree with you, JJ.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, okay, we have every right to expect. And by the way, some bizarre things happening with my phone system here. As I'm looking at the screen, Colonel, I can hear you fine. You can hear me, I assume. But
I can hear you. Sure.
My screen just went blank. I mean, I still have all of the buttons showing up, but it doesn't show that I'm online, and it doesn't show that you're online.
See, here's one of the reasons I'm the mysterious Colonel, because I don't want to make it that easy for the men in black with sunglasses to come find me.
Right.
I want to make it a little bit of a challenge, but I have a hard time believing that it's the technology versus the government trying to preclude the airwaves and our continuing discussions. But what do I know? I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it's just kind of weird how it sort of happens during this show. But whatever.
I was thinking that the other day. I was thinking to myself, if they wanted to mess with us, all they would have to do is interrupt our ability to talk back and forth via the internet. And when you look at what's happening, I mean, first of all, people need to understand something. Phone companies today are not what phone companies used to be. Phone companies... Okay, there it went. You're my witnesses, ladies and gentlemen. It just dumped on us. Absolutely dropped us. And now, watch what's going to happen here.
Welcome back, host. Have a great show.
Ah, there you go. Now it sees me again. Don't ask me how. I can't explain it, but yeah, I mean, literally the whole thing was interrupted, but now I'm back online, and I'm hopeful the Colonel will call right back in. Bizarre. Really bizarre. But, then I was thinking maybe it's my phone guy listening to the show decides to mess with me, and but I don't think he would do that.
It's some government NSA person sitting at their computer terminal listening to this show, and they just decided to mess with us, that's all, because I just got cut off again.
Yeah, no doubt. I was watching the whole thing happen, and and yet we're back.
Unbelievable.
We're here. We're right where we're supposed to be, and don't worry, we're doing everything right. We haven't said any dirty words on the show today.
That's right.
And
nothing yet. Wait a minute. We did talk about Santa Claus.
No, we did.
So well, I don't know about that one.
Well, and we did say some things about the president. So
indeed.
You don't want to do that, or you really make him mad. You start talking about.
JJ, just to get back to what you were talking about before about children's innocence. Remember the Christmas shows that always aired around Christmas time? Man, I could not wait. Even though I saw them the previous Christmas, I couldn't wait to see Yukon Cornelius and I Want to Be a Dentist and the Linus, all these Christmas shows. One of the ones that I really remember that was so poignant, I don't even know what that word means, but I thought it would be a good word to use, when I was a kid, was a movie called Dondi. I mean, these movies were heartwarming, and I remember just like you said earlier, when I was a little kid, man, it affected me. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, but it's about a bunch of GIs that adopt this orphan kid.
Right.
And man, it was just, if you don't get emotional when you're watching this very simple, probably a low-budget movie that only had a few actors in it, this kid oh, GI, buddy. I mean, it just, if you don't get emotional during that, there is something wrong with you.
Well,
I'm watching that today.
There was
to
an
relive
episode,
my childhood.
There was an episode of MASH that aired last night that had to do with a GI that impregnated a Korean woman, and then the mother died, and the baby was rejected by the Korean family because it was half white. And so the whole bunch of them at the 4077 kind of take this baby in, and they're not knowing what to do with it legally. What can they do with it? And finally, at the end of the episode, they wind up finding a church that accepts young infants, no questions asked. And so they go that route. But the idea that especially around Christmas time, it did it again. It did it again. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no idea what's going on here with regard to this, but all this week, telephony has been an issue. All this week, telephony has been an issue. And now, everything has just crawled to a complete standstill. And, it's right in the middle of our conversation that things just all of a sudden stopped working. And again, I'm sitting here looking at my hybrid, a little inside language here. Everything looks like it's supposed to, but when I go to connect, now nothing's happening. And that's bizarre. Okay, now it says we're back. Okay, now it says we're back. Don't ask me how. And the Colonel, I just saw him on there. They just dumped him again. I don't know what's going on. I'm not going to stop and call my phone guy, but this only started happening when we started talking about Easter eggs in the software.
I'm just saying. Yeah. I'm just saying.
Just giving away too many secrets today. Let's talk about Santa Claus. Maybe we talk about Santa Claus, everything else will just we'll leave to the wayside.
Somehow we're going to get tied into that Russian collusion thing, so we better be careful. Yeah. Good Lord. And there's lots of evidence there.
Something tells me it's Jim Comey. James Comey is listening to the show, and he's still very connected to the deep state, so I'm sure that's what's going on. Well, let's talk about search for Santa Claus. Where do we begin searching for Santa Claus? Well, I can tell you. Pole, of course. I'm going to tell you where you're. I want to tell people where you are not going to find Santa Claus. Okay. And this is for everybody to consume at your own pace. Okay. You are not going to find Santa Claus on a pornographic website. Okay? You are not going to find Santa Claus on a pornographic website. You are also not going to find Santa Claus on Twitter. You are not going to find Santa Claus anywhere on your computer. That's not where Santa Claus dwells. Put it that way. Colonel, let's hear from our very dear friend in South Carolina. Charlotte, hi, welcome.
Charlotte, happy
Hey, JJ. Hey, Colonel. Hey, I just want to tell you, it's not just your show. It's happening on other shows, too, usually late at night. And just now I called, and then I got cut off because your phone had been disconnected or was no longer working.
I
tried 3 times before I got you back.
Wow.
Yeah, I got the same thing, Charlotte. Yeah, I had the same thing when I tried calling JJ right back.
It's just like the computer where they're taking off all conservative talk, They're messing with you. But it's not just your show. I've heard it done on other shows, too.
That's wild. That is wild. Yeah,
Wait
how about
a minute.
that?
There are other shows? There are other shows? What?
Well, yes, I listen 24 hours a day.
Wow. JJ, you've never heard of the Mysterious Colonel show? Good Lord. That's why I'm the Mysterious Colonel. Good Lord.
And they're all conservative. Yeah, but it happens on other shows too.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too worried
That's
about
that big state.
Well,
That's the deep
exactly.
state, you're right.
Exactly right. And
Wow.
this is, I believe, the next wave that's going to be coming our way. Is, as I said earlier, communications. You interrupt communications, and you bring everything to a standstill. And while everybody's talking about the threat of an electromagnetic pulse,
they think people will just give up.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, they were talking the other day about the fiber optic cables at the bottom of the ocean, and what would happen if they were severed. And it's like, people don't understand. I mean, every bank, every financial institution, every government institution that does business all around the world relies on systems that, while they're state of the art, it only takes very primitive tools to cut them off. And that's one of the reasons that they got us on 9/11. It wasn't because they were more sophisticated than we were. It's because they had box cutters.
Exactly.
The idea that every threat is high tech is really not the case at all. I mean, there have been cases where people have tried to take out the power grid by chopping one of the legs off of one of those great big towers that
supports. I don't think this is terrorists. I think this is Americans. I think this is deep state.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised to find that that's the fact, but at the same time, there's so much evil in the world today that it could come from just about any angle right now.
Yeah, that's true.
And like I said, they're all out to do the same thing to Trump. I mean, they are trying everything they can to keep him from being effective in doing what he's doing, but they can't do it. And this is what I really believe, that God sent this man for a time such as this. He really did.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
I got to tell you this, and I'm sure you realize that he's 74 years old. I don't know where, if he's getting all the energy to work those hours to do what he's done in less than a year, or a little bit over a year. Let's put it. Well, yeah, I guess a little bit less than a year. If it comes from drinking Diet Coke or whatever he drinks, I'm drinking it because I don't have that level of energy.
Right.
It is remarkable.
You don't drink, you don't smoke.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. You're right. He doesn't drink alcohol. But I'm saying if he drinks 2 Diet Cokes a day, I'm starting a diet on Diet Coke. If I can get the same energy level as him to do what he does, I'm starting January 1st. That's my New Year's resolution. You hear that?
You know they write all that in the newspaper. If you do, they'll condemn you. But I think that he's playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers.
Yeah, something like that. I think you're absolutely right. He's going full speed ahead with his plan and understanding the authority vested in the president. I mean, he has that authority. Nobody can take it from him. And I think that but the fact that they are kicking and screaming the way they are, I think it shows such a great contrast between what we, the conservatives, did for 8 years while Numbnuts was in charge. I'm sorry, Numbnuts number 2.
I do think that these people that voted for him, including me, I do think that if they try to impeach him, the people that vote for him will raise up.
Well, that's when we might be all in the streets. If we get to that point, that's when we'll be in the streets. I'm just saying.
Well,
that's why this investigation.
And that's why they're so liable to attack our communications abilities.
Without a doubt, absolutely.
Because the people that communicate,
I definitely believe.
People that can communicate can coalesce and can plan and can strategize.
Exactly.
Whereas if you just take it all out, and believe me, there are people. I believe that there are a majority of people in certain intelligence agencies and bureaus of our government that are hoping that an electromagnetic pulse attack comes soon, just so that they can shut down the communications.
I think there's some in Congress believe that.
Oh, I know that.
If what Peter Strzok and his, whatever you want to call her, is any indication, It's a small smattering of people in the deep state within our government that will do whatever they have to do to destroy this guy and destroy this administration. That's how deep the hate goes.
Yes.
I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
I wish while they were questioning McCabe that they took him off guard and asked him why Jason and Chapin picked a Congress. What's the fear on his face?
I didn't catch that.
They threatened Jason.
Oh,
McCabe was in on it.
Oh, the threats against Jason Chaffetz.
I want to find out for sure if, and I'm pretty certain they used that BS dossier to get all those FISA warrants and to intercept and then unmask. And we got to get to the bottom of that one way or the other. That's bigger than this nonsensical Russian collusion. If anybody colluded, it's the liberals, it's the Democrats, it's Hillary. They paid for the dossier. Are you kidding me? If somebody paid me, I would daggone sure make something up against Hillary. Are you? I mean, where is the common sense of the American people? And why aren't the American people outraged? That's just a common sense thing. Anyway.
Yeah.
And then, too, they're going to be investigating Obama not going after the drug deal, the Hezbollah.
Yes, and Hezbollah, exactly.
They're going to investigate that.
Now,
exactly.
I want to give
that goes to the top.
I want to give people an update. Earlier, the Colonel had mentioned this headline of smoke and fire alarms going off at Dallas Airport. I want to make sure people know this wasn't Dallas-Fort Worth. This was Love Field in Dallas. This morning, things were back to normal after smoke caused an evacuation at Dallas Love Field. Now, Dallas Love Field, I believe, was the airport that JFK landed at.
JFK, exactly.
When they went on their trip to purportedly to take them to a convention center where they were going to be speaking. And, this, of course, was what led to the assassination of JFK. But, it's interesting when information is incomplete and you don't know all of the information, where some people will run with this on social media and such. And, you ever played that game where everybody's at a party and that you sit down a row of chairs,
right,
and you whisper something to somebody, and then it gets all the way across the room and it's completely different. And this has been magnified and amplified by the internet. It really has.
Well,
you can start a rumor more easily on the internet than any place else. And by the time it reaches certain people's websites, it's being, called fact. And then this is how they have attacked President Trump, with just those kinds of rumors, just those kinds of tactics. And we joke about it sometimes, but what's very serious is the threat that is posed by the operators in the deep state against we the people when it comes to our ability to communicate, our ability to do just about anything can be impeded by some very evil people. And the idea that those threats are not as serious as some people make them out to be. Well, you've got nuclear weapons in the hands of a madman in North Korea. You've got ICBMs in North Korea, and now you've got this dust-up between Saudi Arabia and Iran. So where do you think this might go?
Well, when I see Trump and think about God appointing him, I think what the Bible says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper.
Yeah.
No weapon. And I think that's God's on his side. That's what he is. No weapon formed against him is going to prosper.
I certainly
not as long as God's on his side.
I certainly pray that he continues to listen to that voice in his own head instead of being swayed by politicians that they all have agendas that are just completely out of line with what we need. And I think that, you know...
Well, it looks like he's winning some of them over, JJ, and he's got a lot of people around America praying for him every day.
I have to say, I was very surprised in a good way to see Rand Paul kind of leading the charge for investigations in Congress, because we need this. We really do.
You better believe it.
I mean, at this point in time, especially with everything that's going on at the UN right now. Oh, and by the way, speaking of communications being impeded, look at communist China. The story, which I saw on WorldNet Daily, declassified after almost 30 years. A member of the Chinese State Council estimated that at least 10,000 civilians were killed in the Tiananmen Square massacre of June 4th, 1989.
Oh, my goodness.
Until just yesterday, I believe, this information was suppressed from the media and from the people. And you know, 10,000 doesn't sound like a lot when you're looking at the whole of China. It really doesn't. It's not a drop in the bucket in China.
It's a lot more than we thought.
Yeah, exactly right. And this is the kind of misinformation that has been used by every communist government that's ever existed in the world. And if they can get away with it all the way up to this point in the 21st century, then what do you suppose they're trying to do in America right now?
That's what our media is doing.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They are at the beck and call of the progressives, the globalists, the spiritual wickedness in high places.
Well, they're dumbing down America.
I'll say goodbye to both of you. Merry Christmas to both of you.
Oh, Merry Christmas, Charlotte. God bless you, dear. Take care. Have a great day. All right.
Well, JJ, wasn't it during the last 8 years that they wanted to shut down Fox News?
Oh, they effectively tried to, didn't they?
That's what I'm saying. They certainly tried to, and without Fox, I'm not saying Fox is 100% whatever, but without them, what's left to get honest news or somewhat close to honest news?
You know, Rush Limbaugh used to say something about people that would protest his show and say they wanted equal time, and Rush Limbaugh said, "Well, look at the rest of the media. I am equal time," he said.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's
point.
right. I mean, you look at the slant in the media today, and then they have the nerve to complain about shows like ours.
Exactly.
You watch primetime TV, and it's a wasteland. It really is.
Yep.
It's a wasteland of misinformation, innuendo, and they always drop in their political.
Biases.
Exactly. They're always tossing spears at anybody that speaks out for conservative values. As far back as you remember the show Murphy Brown starring Candice Bergen?
Oh yeah, Murphy Brown. Yep.
And they attacked Dan Quayle and claimed that he was a buffoon and all these things simply because his viewpoints were different from theirs. And you talk about intolerance. They always talk about tolerance in terms of conservatives not being tolerant.
Right.
These people are the most intolerant people on the planet. When you disagree with them, and I go back to the script of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, the motion picture, and John Candy realizing that Steve Martin was hostile towards him and he was intolerant. And John Candy says, "Wow, that's a real great combination, hostile and intolerant. That's borderline criminal." And he was right. I mean, you look at the behavior of these people, and they are the fanatics. They are the fanatics.
Yeah, you're right.
You look at mainstream America, flyover country, and I would say probably 7 out of 10 at least people that live between the coasts and certainly west of the Mississippi. And you look at these people here, common sense is still the ruling factor in their own lives. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the people that have the megaphones on the coasts, And they make it sound as though people that believe in God are should all be institutionalized and re-educated.
Right. Right, exactly.
You know, they have an absolute hatred of anybody that dares to use the term absolute truth, or that speaks in absolute terms about anything. They don't want to acknowledge the fact that there are facts, and that facts do not change because of opinion. And you know, the criteria that they set forth in their own twisted world has no relationship whatsoever with truth. None. And yet...
Yeah. No, you're right.
And yet they're the ones that are being gifted by the government, and you know, especially when it comes to Islam. It's like, if you want to be considered for any government post, then you have to... You're almost forced to say, well, you know, Islam, the religion, is a peaceful religion. It's been corrupted by the extremists. No.
Yeah.
No, Islam is extremist. It's. I mean, there's no question. When you read the text of the Quran, the first 9 chapters is all you need to look at. It is. I mean, it's an absolute declaration of war against anybody that isn't their brand of Islam. If you know, you don't necessarily have to be a Christian or a Jew or a Hindu or a Buddhist. All you have to do is not believe what they believe. Mm-hmm. And that's enough for them to call you an infidel and justify acts which we've all seen, including the one that you mentioned with the Santa Claus. Their determination is that they can use our politeness against us, and that's exactly what they've done in this whole refugee nonsense. You know, I think the number of people that are allowed into this country via the crisis in, you know, places like Syria and Libya,
right?
Send them to Muslim countries. Don't send them here. They have absolutely no.
Right. Keep them exactly.
They don't speak the language.
Keep them right there.
They're out of their culture, and what are they doing? They're trying to institute their culture here. Well, that's not what America is.
I mean, just think about it from a common sense perspective. How can you expect, with their way of life, take Afghanistan and to a certain extent Iraq, where it's all tribal based or Sunni against Shiite? How can you expect people that is their culture, and you can't change that culture? How can you expect them to come to this country and embrace going out at 2 o'clock in the morning and having pizza and all this other nonsense that we enjoy in America? It's just not going to happen from a common sense perspective. They just can't embrace it. And, you see it all the time with these terrorist incidents, whatever. And whatever. I from a common sense perspective, I don't know why people don't get it. And to them I say, hey, Susan Sarandon, Meryl Streep, why don't you invite 20 Syrian refugee families to your house for Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa, whatever holiday you celebrate? Feed, take care of them, and let them stay overnight and see how it goes. Let me know in the morning. Just give it a try.
Right.
Give it a try. Give it a try. Let me know.
Try this on, Colonel. Do you know who Jill Stein is?
Indeed I do.
Yeah.
She's tied up with the Russians now, right?
Yep.
She's a Russian spy.
But no,
I love that one.
Green Party presidential nominee Jill Stein, who ran, by the way, with that guy, what's his name? Gary Johnson? Was that his name?
I think you're right.
He's the one that
sounds familiar.
He's the one that went Aleppo. What's Aleppo?
Oh, right. Yeah. Right.
Anyway, Jill Stein said today that her dinner in Russia, where she was photographed sitting at a table with Russian President Vladimir Putin and former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, was a non-event, coming at the end of a conference about the media and international affairs. She said, my campaign paid for the trip, including our airfare, my hotel, or food, all the rest of it, said Stein. She was being grilled by MSNBC. Yeah, right. The panel actually took place during the day. As you know, there are and were during the campaign very critical issues, and high on my agenda was a weapons embargo to the Middle East, freezing the bank accounts of those countries who continue to sponsor terrorism, like Saudi Arabia, nuclear weapons, abolition, and climate change, she said. Well, why is it that you can be so dismissive of meetings at that level from a presidential candidate, while at the same time attacking viciously President Trump, who never once spoke to Vladimir Putin or met with any of his representatives during the campaign? This was during the campaign that she's meeting with Putin.
Yeah. Or even Mike Flynn was at the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, no big deal.
No big deal. Nothing to see.
It's absolutely disgusting, and everything that they're accusing our side of, the Trump side, is exactly what is very blatant that the Democrats did.
Right.
The fake dossier, paying for it, all that nonsense. That there's, tremendous evidence about Russian collusion on their side.
Yeah.
I don't get it, and it's just common sense. Crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely crazy. But crazier still are the people out there that and by the way, we're going to stick with our theme here today, searching for Santa.
Searching for Santa.
The way I see it, as I said, you're not going to find Santa Claus in pornographic websites. You're not going to find him on social media. You're not going to find him at the bottom of a glass, unless it's a glass of milk left with the cookies. But you're not going to find Santa Claus. You're not going to find Santa Claus in a pill. You're not going to find Santa Claus in a syringe. You're not going to find Santa Claus in a bottle. The thing that all of you out there need to do, you adults with children, young children in your lives, if you want to find Santa Claus, first of all, you have to soften your own hearts and then look in the mirror and understand that Santa Claus, as misunderstood as the figure is in modern America and the world, Santa Claus is it's a mindset, it's a spirit, it's a commitment that many, many generations of people have made to keep alive the festivity and the joy of Christmas. In the face of unprecedented cynicism and hostility, where nativity scenes are no longer allowed at public squares, or even, you look at the Ten Commandments, you look at all the different ways that Christian institutions have been challenged, persecuted, and bullied. Yes, I use the word bullied by people on the left. Santa Claus as a concept is quite real. And just as the author of the article many years ago in the newspaper, yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. Parents everywhere, aunts, uncles, grandparents, whatever you are. You may think that Santa Claus is a silly notion, but why is it? Why is it that we're so eager to let go of Santa Claus when our children are inundated with so many things that they don't know which way is up, morally speaking, anymore? I mean, I've seen this happen where a child is raised in an environment where one of the parents is either not there or is there but is not real committed to whatever it is that they supposedly believe in. And then when those children grow up, they don't have a firm foundation beneath their feet because somebody said, well, it's not that important. I'd rather just do what I do. Santa Claus is not a central figure in Christianity. However, Santa Claus would never have come to exist were it not for Christianity, were it not for the ultimate gift given by God Almighty to all of us. Santa Claus was actually a real person way back when. And no, he didn't, get in his sleigh with his reindeer, but he was a real person. And as a matter of fact, he was a saint, for that matter, in the eyes of many. But the concept of Santa Claus, if it keeps one child from getting into drugs, if it keeps one child from doing, any number of things that are going to ruin them for the rest of their lives, like, transgenderism or any of these other things, which is being foisted on your kids every day in this culture. This idea that you can attack something as basic as the gender of somebody at this age of identity politics. Our young children today, unless they are given the gift of a firm foundation by their parents and by other caregivers in their lives, unless they are given that firm foundation at a young age, they will grow up with absolutely no understanding of what our morality is based on. Because nobody took the time to say, I care enough that I'm going to stand in the gap for this young person. Colonel, you and I had so much of an advantage because of how we were parented when we were young. And we didn't even realize that it was such a great advantage at the time because we thought everybody else lived the same way we did.
Exactly. You're right. Yep.
And now today, less than half of the kids in public schools have two-parent households. And as a matter of fact, I think it's far less than half, especially in the inner cities. And, if we're going to save these young people in this next generation from the wolves that are waiting at the door, what is it? The Bible says the devil is like a lion seeking whom he may devour.
Yeah.
The enemy is out there waiting for these young people to go out into the big wide world. And they'll have absolutely no understanding of what's happened to them until it's too late.
Exactly. That's right. That's right.
So you want to find Santa Claus.
Yep.
You want to keep Santa Claus alive in the hearts of these youngsters. Fill them with a sense of self-worth that is based on substance. And I don't mean to bash public schools. So I know there's some very hardworking people in the education system, but if you are sending your kids to a public school and expecting that public school experience is going to be the same as the one you had when you were in school, then you have major problems ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And, Santa Claus, it might sound a little oversimplified to say that keeping Santa Claus alive is part of the, it's part of what we need to do to keep our children from falling victim to the machinations against them that have been put in place for now 100+ years by progressivists. How do you protect kids from evil ideas?
Yeah.
I mean, to do that, you have to build a stable platform beneath them. Don't leave it to chance, and don't expect or trust anybody else to parent your kids on your behalf. And I believe truly, Colonel, that intervention by God Almighty is still happening in the world today. I really believe that. I believe that
I hope so. Because I'm always conflicted with God intervening versus, man's free will, and that's where I have a little bit of a disconnect. But I have a tendency to sort of lean to what you're saying, that God does intervene.
I
to
go
make
back
things
to
right.
I go back to November 8th, 2016.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I totally agree.
I was walking down the hall. I was walking down the hall that night as I was about to start my election coverage. And I was praying to God. I said, Lord, I have no idea how you're going to do this, but I believe you will.
But just do it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No,
you're right.
And the instant answer to that prayer was the bewildered faces of people like Cenk Uygur on Young Turks.
Yeah.
And Rachel Maddow and even Megyn Kelly, I think, was the most affected by that election result.
Yeah. I'm not a I never was a big supporter of hers, but
no.
Definitely not anymore.
Well, at that moment, though, when it became evident that Donald Trump was going to win, she had a look on her face, and it was like the look on her face was the look on her face wasn't just how could this happen? The look on her face was, oh man, I really screwed the pooch. You know, I said things about this man, and I attacked him in ways that permanently. You'll never have access to him ever again. And there's no way that Fox could maintain his credibility and keep Megyn Kelly. It simply wasn't possible.
Yeah.
And looking back, I think to myself, so many people were so wrong on this election.
Absolutely.
That it absolutely shook their foundation. That Donald Trump, using nothing but good old American salesmanship and just basics.
Exactly.
Keep it simple. To say, look, America needs to be America again. It needs to be great again, and let's put America first. That simple concept won the election. And they still don't get it. They still don't understand that what Americans wanted was America, the great country, to reemerge.
Yep.
And they still don't get it.
Absolutely.
Even now, with the stock market flirting with 25,000.
Exactly.
It's
not good enough.
No. They all wanted to be the one that delivered the death blow to Donald Trump's candidacy.
Exactly.
And instead, what happened? What happened indeed? Oh, goodness.
Remember, they all predicted that the stock market was going to tank. Everybody's going to lose their money. The sky's falling. And look, it's just the opposite. Now, you're right. A lot of these things sort of point towards divine intervention because, just probably can't explain it any other way. So, it's amazing. And they try so hard to kill this guy. You know what? A couple of weeks ago, they brought up these women again because the Russian thing is not getting any traction. So they bring out these women to make their accusations again. That lasts for about a week. That's gone now. So it's like they're trying whatever they can do to destroy him. It's just, I've never seen anything like it. They hate him more than they hate that little fat, dirty you-know-what over in North Korea.
Yeah.
Who's got his finger on nuclear weapons that'll use them before Donald Trump ever even thinks about using them. It's just amazing.
Now, I want to share one more story with you as we're running out of time here today. This is written by Art Moore at WorldNet Daily. And the headline reads, Kim Jong out? Some see a sign of collapse. 1 month ago.
Really?
1 month ago when a North Korean soldier fled through the ultra-high security demilitarized zone amid a hail of gunfire from his comrades. He arrived in South Korea severely wounded, but yesterday when another soldier of the communist dictatorship made a run for freedom, no shots were fired by North Korean elite guards. Could the world be witnessing a repeat of 1989 when East Germany began crossing the border into Hungary and then to freedom in Austria, leading to the collapse of Eastern European communist regimes and eventually the Soviet Union? So are we talking apples to apples? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Kim Jong-un would just as soon kill every citizen than to give up his power.
Yeah.
There's no way in the world.
Exactly.
And he is proven to be, every bit the madman dictator that we've ever seen.
Exactly.
I don't know if there's a figure in history that we can compare him to. Perhaps some of the czars
Stalin,
in Russia.
Maybe. Stalin, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Or go back to the pharaohs.
Yeah.
But this guy is. I mean, he is viewed. The government requires that the people view him as a deity, a divine figure of some sort.
Right.
I never knew. I never knew that God was 5'7" tall and weighed 300 pounds.
Exactly.
Just imagine.
And it had a funny haircut like that, Yeah.
I mean, of all the disguises, boy, it's a really, really good disguise.
Exactly.
I'm telling you.
I know.
But
exactly.
with all that's going on in the world, and all the tension, all the fear, all the people hand-wringing and wondering what's going to happen next, there is no excuse for the last 8 years of the Barack Obama regime allowing North Korea to basically do whatever they pleased when it came to nuclear weapons development, never lifting a finger to stop them, never really using any teeth when it came to sanctions, and at the same time making the ridiculous concessions that were made to Iran.
Yep.
When you look at Barack Obama in the history books years from now, in whatever form they take, you're going to read about a person that was nothing more than an operative for Soviet-style Marxism in America, and to have pulled that off is going to show that people in the media all around the world, but especially in America, will be viewed as the stupidest people that ever walked upright, because they never lifted a finger to expose Barack Obama for what he really was.
Exactly. They let all this happen.
Yeah.
And now we're left cleaning, or now Trump is left cleaning up all the mess that he left.
That's exactly right. So, if you want to, if you want to keep your kids from being miseducated and the disinformation going on and on and on forever, then you're going to have to take a much more direct approach in informing and educating your kids. Because if you don't do that, then when they find out what the world is really all about, they're going to blame you. They're going to say, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you give me the tools I would need to overcome this kind of tyranny? That's the bottom line. In America today, that's what's needed from parents. And, the government's not going to tell them, that's for sure. So, as we head towards Christmas Day on Monday, Colonel, I want to say to you, Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Same to you, JJ.
You've been one of the very best friends that we've ever had.
Well,
And
I thank you for saying that. That's very kind of you, and likewise, JJ, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of your show. I hope I provided some sort of benefit and entertainment.
I'll talk to you off air about where to send the check, okay? So I
was going to say that to you. Good Lord.
Well,
anyway,
thank you so much, my friend. Merry Christmas.
Always. God
bless you, my friend.
Thanks, JJ.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, my friends, that's going to do it for the Friday edition. That's going to do it for this week. We will run best of shows on Monday, and we'll be back on Tuesday with Dr. Mark Davis. We'll find out if he had any lumps of coal in his stockings. But friends, I really do want to ask all of you to please pray for our kids, pray for President Trump, pray for the nation, that we can have one more chance from God Almighty to get things right and to really step it up as we head towards next year and the next election and all the other things that are on the line. Pray to God Almighty. God is real. He hears your prayers. And he answers your prayers. I know it personally. I don't deserve it, but I'm so thankful that he is there. He really is there. You want to find Santa Claus for your kids, for your neighbor's kids, look in the mirror. If God has given you the ability, then please look in the mirror and try and keep it alive so our kids can stay innocent a little bit longer. Merry Christmas to all of you. From Nightside Radio Studios, the family We all thank you very much. Be good to yourselves, and if you possibly can, be good to someone else. And remember, we'll win in the end because there are more of us than there are of them. Because God is with us. And because we're all in this thing together. God bless you all. Merry Christmas from the J.J. McCartney Show, from our home to yours. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.